Hi, welcome to Miss Richardson's U.S. History 5-Minute Lectures. This information is U.S. Notes 2.12, the impact of the stock market crash. This includes information that aligns with section number 3 on your Unit 2 study guide. Remember, you have control of this lecture. Pause whenever you need to write down things, rewatch as often as you need, and make sure you're using your study guide to help you take those notes into study. Let's go ahead and get started. Now that you know what caused the stock market crash, what were the impacts of this and the Great Depression as a whole? What changed in America? That's what we want to find out. When the stock market crashed, it was an event that had never been experienced before. No one really knew what to do to help. And in typical 1920s president fashion, the president at the time, Herbert Hoover, thought that not getting involved was the best policy. Now remember, all throughout the 20s, the economy had grown and prospered with very little government involvement, that whole laissez-faire policy. So Hoover felt that maintaining that policy was best. He didn't want the people to rely on the government to save them. He wanted things to work themselves out. So with the downward cycle of less disposable income leading to lowered production, which led to fewer jobs, which led to less money, which led to less buying, leading to lowered production, which leads to fewer jobs, which leads to less money, less buying, and so on, you can guess that unemployment, or the number of people who were not able to find jobs, rose drastically. If you look at the graph from 1929 to 1944, so 29 to 34, sorry, to 1934, 33, you can actually see the skyrocketing unemployment in those years. You can see how much it jumps from under 5% up to 25% in just those 4 years. All of these unemployed Americans now had to choose what to do with themselves and their families. There was no unemployment insurance. There was no government welfare program. There were no food stamps. There was no governmental help of any kind. So for food, they could go to soup kitchens and bread lines, hoping that there would be enough for them and their family. So these were always run by charities, and often because they just didn't have enough for everyone because they had to rely on donations. And there were fewer donations because there were more unemployment and more people who needed help. So these places could actually run out of food before all the people in the lines got fed. Many people actually even lost their homes. There was no housing help when this happened. They could move in with family or friends unless those people had also lost their homes. So no one had homes. So what happened is Hoovervilles, these shanty towns, and you can see that here in this picture, were set up on unused public lands around the country. So it was illegally setting up your home, kind of building your own shack to live in, and they were full of Americans that were displaced from their homes by the Depression. Here are some more pictures. These slums, the Hoovervilles, were actually named after President Hoover because many people blamed him for the Depression, especially as things continued to get worse. So some people even sent their children to live with others or to orphanages because they couldn't care for them anymore. Families ended up broken up. People actually lost track of other family members because they had to move for work or they were forced from their homes. They were forced to separate to try to survive. So as that happened, they actually lost touch because remember, in the 1930s, people don't have telephones. They definitely don't have cell phones. Traveling was much more difficult. So you just lost track of your family and didn't know where they went. Some Americans, mostly men and boys, even turned to life on the road. These hobos, that's what they were called, traveled the country on railroads looking for work. They would hop on trains without paying, which is illegal, and they used that to transport themselves all around the country looking for jobs. So here you can see some of that, sleeping under the train, basically just living on the road. And they even had some signs, a way of communicating with one another to let people know where it was safe, where it wasn't safe. One photographer, Dorothea Lange, is famous for traveling through the Hoovervilles and poor camps in the Depression and depicting life during the time. We'll actually look at some of her photographs in class of life in the Great Depression. It was definitely a difficult, unhappy time in American history. So this is the end of US Notes 2.12. I hope you learned something and bring any questions you have to class.